I'm Liza Holland, and I'm a member of the Nonpartisan League of Women Voters of Lexington. I'll be serving as moderator for this forum for candidates for the second session of the LFUCG City Council at Large. The League of Women Voters is the sponsor for this event. This forum will be available later by going to the League website at lwvlexington.org and connect with candidate forums. We have 4 candidates for this election, and they have been chosen in a randomized order by random.org. Welcome, candidates. We're so glad to have you here. We are following the League of Women Voters policies and procedures for this forum. In order to give the candidates a fair chance to be heard, again, we have randomly drawn via random.org for the order of opening remarks and questions, and a second time for the order of closing remarks. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to introduce themselves and 60 seconds to respond to questions. Questions have been created by the sponsors and the public. Finally, we will give each candidate 60 seconds for closing remarks, and we will use the second drawing for the order of closing remarks. Mr. Brown, you are up first for opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Liza, and thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm James Brown. I currently represent the 1st District here in Lexington on the City Council. I have 3 grown children that I raised here in Lexington with my wife, who is Charmaine, who is a healthcare professional here. I've been on council representing the 1st District for the last 7 years, and I feel like my experience on council and my understanding of city government has helped prepare me to run for council at large to represent the whole city. We have a special community here in Lexington. Our people, we have great people, great natural resources, a good local economy. But I think we also still have some challenges that we need to work on as a community, and feel like that the way that we do things here in Lexington and the great people of this community will give us the opportunity to work together to address some of the challenges that we have. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
My platform is pretty simple. I'm for lower property taxes, given the fact real estate prices are escalating in this town. I'm also for lower payroll taxes. The city is losing its greatest asset, and that is being very affordable as it compares to other parts of the country. And that's going to be my platform going forward. I'm going to try to reduce government waste, government spending, and get more money in the hands of the people, and bring Lexington and keep Lexington back in its special rating and special place for everyone in Fayette County and the country as well. Excellent. Thank you so much. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
Hello, I am Lillie Miller-Johnson, and I, as a previous supervisor, elected supervisor of the Soil and Water Conservation District, feel that that has prepared me for the at-large position. So I know the ins and outs of dealing with a group of people, and I have the whole community in interest involved, and that means every area, from housing, which I've always been involved in, getting housing here, Lexington Habitat, community ventures, that's for jobs, and other issues that concern our community, whether they are for the minorities in the community or just any type of situation. So I hope you look at me and see that I am the person that you should put in the at-large position, because I did most of this work before I became a supervisor, and I'm hoping that in the large position that I can further the interests of the people in the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope to have you vote.
Mr. Wu.
Thank you all so much for having us, Liza and Carol and the League of Women Voters, for this important forum. I've lived in Lexington for most of my life, and as the husband of a school teacher, father of 2 high schoolers, and as a small business owner, Lexington is more than a city to me. It's my home. I'm running for city council because, like all of you, I'm sure, I love Lexington. Lexington is growing at a really fast clip, and I just want to make sure we grow intentionally and equitably so we don't leave anyone behind. And in order to do what we need to do to address the challenges of public safety, economic development, small business entrepreneurship, and affordable housing and land use, I believe I bring the fresh perspective, creativity, boldness, and experience that we need to tackle all of these challenges to our growing city. So I look forward to this discussion and sharing more of my vision for a better Lexington. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Milliard, we will have you take this question first.
Okay.
What do you see as the single most important issue facing Lexington, and what is your plan to address the issue?
The single, like I stated in my opening argument, the single greatest issue facing Lexington right now is affordability, the rapid increase in housing, the lack of affordable housing, the lack of buildable lots. And one of the first things I'm going to do is let the city release some of these development rights so we can start more affordable housing. Right now, the builders, there's one builder in this town that's got lots to build. They build the houses and they auction them to the highest bidders. No one else has buildable lots, and I'm going to change that. Here's another problem. The lack of sewer capacity, compounded with the lack of no buildable lots, is going to cause the demolition of every single family home in this city and change it to 3 to 12-story buildings.
Thank you so much.
So every house.
Ms. Miller-Johnson.
I believe the overall affordability of housing is important, but our communities working together is also important. Although we claim to be working together, I'm concerned about the issues of working together to get housing for individuals that are low income and those that want to move into better housing or improve their housing situation. I also think that the communities, I'm invested in the whole community, and that is my concern at this point. And that's what is the major issues at hand right now with the Urban County Council and some other things. I think that is the most important, and making sure that we deal with the homelessness, people coming into town because of our programs and overrunning the situation where we have multiple homeless and immigration status also.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Mr. Wu.
Yeah, I think right now, you know, having talked to a lot of voters over this past year and even before that, the thing that comes up over and over again has to do with housing and development and how we're using our land. We have a shortage of housing that folks can get into the market with right now. And beyond the actual physical shortage of housing, there's another issue that I don't hear talked about a lot, is the fact that if you're a first-time home buyer and you've got a good credit score and good wages and you want to put 20% down and you walk up to a house for sale, well, suddenly there's another company from out of town who is an investment company. They walk in with a cash offer that's over asking, and folks really just can't compete. So beyond building up our housing stock, which I think is essential, we also have to figure out how do we let owner-occupied buyers and first-time homeowners be competitive in this market?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you for the question. And I think my other folks have touched on the number one issue. And I think right now, I think it's growth. I think it's how we grow as a city. There's these issues around housing affordability and affordable housing in Lexington. There's also issues around infrastructure in regards to streets and roads, sewer ability, and how we grow in our land use policies overall to give all folks the opportunity to have a place to live and work in Lexington. And then I also think the retention of talent. I think that's also a growth issue. We have 3 universities, and I think we all struggle to keep that young talent pool of future employees here in Lexington. And then also another component of growth is safety. What policies do we need to put in place, and how can we empower folks in their neighborhoods to feel safer and to make their neighborhoods safer as we continue to grow as a city?
Thank you so much. Ms. Miller-Johnson, you will take this question first. The agricultural sector has a $2.3 billion economic impact on Fayette County, accounting for over 8.5 million of the city's payroll revenue. It is poised to grow with the support of Mayor Gorton's administration for making Fayette County a center for ag tech. The question is, as a council member, what are your priorities for the agriculture and food system economy?
Thank you. This has been a long concern of mine also, that with the ag culture, we have to know that this is very important for our growth. If we're constantly going overseas looking for to buy and stock our food sources, then that is really sad, because look at what's going on now. And then also trade could end at any time. So we need to be viable in those areas. And I do feel like we could invest in people that want to own or grow foods and vegetables. And then there's hot houses and other areas, other sustainable places that you can, greenhouses that you can set up in your backyard with no problem being able to. Now there are some parts of Lexington that has okay, like chickens and putting little gardens in, and so those areas can be used.
Okay, thank you so very much. Appreciate your answer. Mr. Wu.
Yeah, I think the ties that we have to agriculture and local agriculture is one of the things that honestly makes Lexington very unique. As somebody from the restaurant industry, food is very important to me. Food sustainability, food equity, and local food. As a restaurateur, and a lot of restaurants here in Lexington depend on local foods, local growers, regional growers. So I think we can really be the innovators in this sector and keep moving in that direction. We have great local organizations like Black Soil. We've got national level organizations like App Harvest kind of making their homes here in Lexington. And I think with the PDRs, the purchase of development rights that the city uses, that's another good way to preserve some of our land for future agricultural use. I would love to see a local food system where Lexington can get a huge chunk of its food from local growers.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brown.
Liza, can I ask you to repeat the question?
Sure. The agricultural sector has a $2.3 billion economic impact on Fayette County, accounting for more than 8.5 million of the city's payroll revenue. It is poised to grow with the support of Mayor Gorton's administration for making Fayette County a center for ag tech. So the question is, as a council member, what are your priorities for the agriculture and food system economy?
All right, thank you for that. As a council member, I think part of it is going to be creating a greater understanding of what that means and what that looks like in Lexington. I think if folks knew what all the opportunities were in regards to Lexington's agricultural community, I think that would create more buy-in from folks that aren't in that sector. And I think that's identifying what jobs are in that sector, what other opportunities are in that sector, And then I think we can also look at policies to do more permanent land preservation for those lands that provide that opportunity and make Lexington special. I think there are some protections to make sure that we stay an agricultural hub, but I think there are some policies that we can put in place to permanently preserve that. And then I also think that we need to look for other opportunities to maximize on the infrastructure that makes us unique, and that's the interstate and our proximity to the rest of the country, and then also our broadband infrastructure that we have here in Lexington. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milliard.
Now, similar, I served with Ms. Miller. Thank you, Ms. Miller, for your service. One of the programs we have is the backyard conservation. You know, you can get grants to grow vegetables. And I want to encourage everybody to do it often enough. We have money surplus. So please call your Fayette Soil and Water Conservation District and see what they can offer you. Next, one of the things I want to see is horses brought into the city and images of horses brought into the city. You see these tourists come here, what are they doing? They're shooting pictures of horse statues. Horses can be kept in your backyard under current code, okay? So if we're known for being the horse capital of the world, let's bring horses inside this urban area. That will draw more people here to spend tourist dollars. Thank you, I've run out of time.
Thank you so
Work on
much.
horses.
I appreciate it very much. Mr. Wu, you will take this next question. Would you support the expansion of the urban services boundary if it were done very carefully so as not to harm the agricultural part of Fayette County, and you could be assured that housing built there would be mixed, small and large, expensive and inexpensive, single family and multifamily? Please explain your answer.
I think, you know, we've had this debate for a while now, the expanding the USB versus doing more infill redevelopment. I personally don't think that we have tapped out the potential number of creative and bolder solutions when it comes to infill redevelopment. Expanding the urban services boundary is not a magic bullet for solving our housing issue here. Expanding the boundary means that we have to increase services, that we have to think about sidewalks and streets and fire departments and police departments and sewer and tree canopy and all of these different issues. So I think we need to absolutely think creatively and boldly about the solutions that we have within the USB in terms of infill redevelopment and smart, sensible infill redevelopment before we tackle the idea of expansion.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Liza, for the question. What I support is us having a conversation about what a process may look like to consider whether or not expansion is on the horizon or something that we need to do going forward. There's been a conversation that we continue to have, and I think it gets put in a situation where it's just either for or against. And I think, you know, our current growth strategy is to just do infill and redevelopment. But as we've heard from different neighborhoods and different parts of our community, that infill and redevelopment can create some opportunity where folks are getting displaced outside of Lexington. So I think to give everyone the opportunity in Lexington to be successful, we need to have a conversation about how and what way we want our community to grow, and to have every option available to be able to discuss about that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Milliard.
Well, Matt Milliard is an award-winning infill developer for environmentally sensitive property. And I currently have 3 projects underway for infill development. And let me tell you right now, the city lacks the staff, the capacity, and the understanding of how to do it. I beat them in court twice. So when you go see my projects around this town, what you see is very well picked, very well built, and it's very environmental sensitive. So when the city comes after you, you got to remember they don't really know what they're doing. And the city's employees make a lot of mistakes. And the city administrations and managers are very corrupt. Right now, there's a court case pending. The judge refused to throw it out. I'm going to win in court if I get a fair judge. And then it's going to be, how do you make me whole?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
Well, I was asked the same question the other day, and I agree with you. The question, if it was done sensibly, and there's a conversation about what areas where we decide to expand in the urban service area. And of course, you know, they bring up PDR all the time, but PDR is the city or the government purchasing small areas of land near the roads and stuff so that they can, if they want to expand, then they can expand the roads or make areas open to the public for roads and stuff. And so the PDR is pays the individual money to use their land. It's like renting a piece of property. And so as far as expanding housing, I believe in the infill to the extent that if we're in the city, we still need to breathe and have trees and stuff there. And so I would be in the conversation and look at the situation as each situation comes up.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brown, you'll take this question first. Many of Lexington's most vulnerable citizens make their home here. How can they be protected from displacement?
I think there's a lot of ways that we can try to work to protect the most vulnerable in our community. And I think it's looking at some of the policies that we have around and opportunities we have around creating affordable housing and housing affordability. You know, when we talk about displacement and folks not having the opportunity to live and stay in Lexington, I think it goes beyond just low income and vulnerable people. And vulnerable communities. You know, one of the things that we learned and talked about during the Neighborhoods and Transition Task Force meeting is that even some of the jobs and some of the professions that we have in Lexington, they also find it pretty challenging to stay in Lexington to have Lexington as their home. And I'll just use our public safety sector as an example. You know, our police officers, our firefighters, you know, a lot of them live outside of Lexington. I think some of it's by choice, but I think some of it is because of the cost of housing. So we just need to look at opportunities to create more opportunities for folks to stay in Lexington.
Thank you so much. Mr. Milliard.
Well, there's already a mechanism in place, folks. It's called special rights. Research special rights and see who qualifies for special rights and ask why it can't be expanded to cover these vulnerable people. Because a lot of people inside the urban district are being economically displaced. They cannot afford to live here. They cannot afford to buy the houses. They cannot afford to fix them up. So if they had special rights, they would have the ability to have those things. I'm one of the real estate appraisers that's rotated for grants where the city gives people to fix up these houses. Folks, I want to encourage you all to call grants and see if you qualify for one of these grants where they will basically rehab your house. Special rights, folks. You'll hear more about it from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
That is one of my concerns that I've been addressing too. That's why I got on the internet and I looked up Habitat and who supported it. And and the banks that supported, I wrote letters and called them. I stayed on it because one, housing and being displaced is not even being a real concern, because that is why we have some of the homeless. I'm not talking about the ones that are coming into town just to get into their programs. But the displacement of the most vulnerable is when you buy a home and you've had that home in your family for years and they want to rebuild or in that area, and they buy you out, but they don't make sure you have a place to go. And some people like living in smaller communities, and that may be because of the situations that we are having at this moment with shootings and other situations, safety. That I went to the safety meetings also.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much on this question. Thank you. Mr. Wu.
I think, this is kind of the center of everything that we're talking about. I think we're talking about the ideas of equity. We're talking about the fact that we are a fast growing city and we don't want to become this sort of stratified city where parts of us, some of us are doing really, really well, and parts of us, some of us, especially those working in service industries, aren't doing so well and can't afford to live in Lexington. So we have to look at it from a really holistic point of view. And it really starts with housing. Housing stability is the foundation for every single thing else, whether it's being able to hold down a job, send your kids to school, to be able to eat in a healthy way. And we have to talk about economic opportunities. This is another way that we end up addressing public safety as well. So have to think about all these things very holistically. We have to talk about mental health. We have to talk about substance use disorder. We have to talk about education, nutrition. We have to tackle it really from all angles and not look for easy, quick solutions.
Thank you so much. Mr. Milliard, you will take this question first.
Oh, thank you.
One of the big challenges that that everywhere is facing right now is climate change. What do you view as the city's role in supporting green initiatives in Lexington?
Well, again, as elected officer, Soil and Water Conservation District, we give away trees. Trees process this carbon dioxide. If every person planted a tree, we could get to zero emissions. The trees are the key to stop global warming, okay? Lexington needs more trees and more shrubbery that eats and processes carbon dioxide. Just look at pictures of Los Angeles or Miami, and what do you see? Trees. We need more trees and a better type of tree. Some trees are better than others. So I personally like evergreen. And one of my hallmarks as a builder and developer are holly trees. It's real easy to find where that's being as a builder or developer because my signature is a holly tree. I love them.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
I, as a member of the Soil and Water Conservation District, I, as a previous supervisor, these are one of the issues. I replant the bluegrass that I contributed in getting the Soil and Water Conservation District to help fund that. And also the backyard garden was my baby when I was with the Conservation District. And trees are important. This is something I addressed. I called Washington on it, even when our forest and California's forest was burning. These are issues that are not only in our community, but global. And this is one of the reasons climate change is going on. We have caused the climate change with all the mining and different things that are going on in the United States. So we need to fix it. And we have to be cognizant of the situation and then work forward. And that's why we have
Thank you so
organizations
much
like
on this issue. I appreciate it. Mr. Wu.
I think local government can set a great example of how to move forward to fight climate change, both with environmental improvements and sort of greening the way that we do business as local government, all the way up to prioritizing contracts for companies or groups who operate in a sustainable way. We just saw this past week the expansion of recycling. A lot of folks are real happy that we get to recycle paper again, and they've opened up to a couple of other different categories as well. And then one of the other things that we keep talking about that also impacts our environment is smart infill redevelopment. If we develop in such a way that people can live closer to the places where they work and shop and eat, then people are driving less, which is better quality of life, better on their pocketbooks in terms of how much money they're spending on gas, with gas prices the way they are today, and better impact for the environment as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, yes, I agree. I think local government has an opportunity to be an example and to be a leader in regards to reducing its carbon footprint. Just recently, we created a new position in city government. I can't remember the title exactly, but I think it's Environmental Sustainability Coordinator. And they're going to be tasked with looking at opportunities and looking for new opportunities that the city government can do to be more environmentally friendly and reduce its carbon footprint. A lot of times, I think people look to the government to be an example and to be a leader in that industry, and I think we have on several fronts. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to improve. One example I'll give is the CNG vehicles, the natural gas vehicles that we have in waste management. I think Lexington has a lot of buses that are CNG. What we found out in the budget process is they're more expensive, but I think that is value that we can, I think that's money well spent in protection of our environment. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miller-Johnson, you'll take this question first. Over half of the city's budget general fund is allocated to public safety, yet those needs are different in each of the districts all around Lexington. How will you address the specific public safety needs that will be equitable across Lexington while ensuring that those services are responsive to and effective for the community as a whole?
Well, I'm sure with everything, the budget is for public safety. I attended that safety meeting that they had downtown, and I heard a lot of comments, but there's an overall need to watch all communities and be aware of what's going on in those communities. So that is a discussion that I am looking forward to, because one, we putting on more police, and I want to make sure that they address the issues that the police are really, I've seen several news clips where they've said they're active in the community, interaction with the people in the community. Some of the policemen are, but I also know that we have to get our people involved in their own safety. People that are not gonna go to the far side and address issues on their own. They have a program for the regular constituent to join in as a citizens policeman, and those are really good training courses.
Thank
So
you. I appreciate it. That's all we can do on this issue. Thank you. Mr. Wu.
Yeah, I think so. When we talk about public safety and that budget, it includes 911, it includes fire department, the LPD. But I think, a lot of the focus has been on the LPD over the past few years. And what we really need from a local police department is more local and community connections. And unfortunately, they have a really severe lack of staffing right now. They're very much shorthanded by a couple hundred officers right now, which makes that job hard. I think one solution is to continue to, because LPD is already doing a lot of these things, but to continue to support them with different kinds of wraparound services that, for example, like mental health intervention, substance abuse, all kinds of other local official and non-official organizations to basically help them do their job. And of course, the LPD also needs to look at recruitment and retention to get those numbers up, to do all the things that the community is asking them to do.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Liza, for this question. I think public safety is priority number one. If folks don't feel safe in their neighborhoods and their community, it leads to all kind of other issues. And I think in regards to funding, I think we need to help identify a dedicated funding source for public safety that as our community grows, so does that budget to address the needs of a growing community. I think we put a lot of focus and a lot of emphasis on some of our newer programs, one being the community paramedicine program with our fire department. And that's also in partnership with our police department that creates some of those wraparound services that folks in our community need. But then also our neighborhood resource officers position with our fire department. I think those positions help build relationships and do more of the prevention and intervention type of initiatives that we like to see. And then just most recently, there's been a lot of improvement in regards to training and in transparency in our public safety department, which I think the community has asked for and our departments have been responsive to.
Thank you so much. Mr. Milliard.
Well, public safety is what it's all about here in Lexington. We basically have a very safe community compared to other similar metropolitan areas. So I'm for keeping the budget for what it is. However, 40 years experience as a real estate appraiser, I know how to figure out problems and solve them. What you need here is micromanagement and target the problem area and go into those areas with all the resources we have, the police, the neighborhood. Sociologists need to be on those neighborhoods and figure out why one area has more problems than the other one. And I can already tell you what that problem is. That problem is going to stem around what it visually looks like. Okay? So if we micromanage these problem areas, put more money there, why put additional money in a neighborhood that doesn't have these problems? And I'm not going to go into which neighborhoods are better or worse or none of that, but it's really a micromanagement problem and a better use and allocation of the funds that we have available. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Wu, you will take this next question first. Meaningful public participation is vital to a responsive local government. What are some innovative approaches that you would advocate for to make government processes more accessible, equitable, and transparent?
You know, before I started running for office, there was a whole lot I didn't know about how local processes work because there wasn't that level of transparency that I, as a citizen and as a voter, would have really wanted to see how votes are done. A lot of times there are frustrations from voters because they don't feel like they're part of the public comment process because we simply don't sometimes know how the public comment process works and we enter the process too late and we can't give input. I think we need to open up more access to not just council meetings or council work sessions or committee meetings, but just go out more into the communities and really communicate a lot of the work that we do, how we do this work, and how to get other people to participate. One of the things that's going on next week is On the Table, which is a public comment process, conversation process to figure out what we want Lexington to be in the coming years. And I'm actually hosting 3 of these sessions. You can go to ottlex.org to find out more.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
One of the things I think we can do is to communicate more efficiently with the community. there were some requirements to give public notice via the local media newspaper. And as a lot of us know, that's not where people get a lot of their information nowadays. It's not the newspaper, it's social media, it's their phones. It's, there's other ways of technology that we can use technology to get the word out and to better communicate with folks in the community. I think we need to explore and look for those opportunities. I think the other thing that we can do in local government is create more opportunities to give folks the ability to come in and understand how these processes work, how an ordinance or how a resolution gets started, and follow it, and show them how it goes through the process, and let them know all the opportunities for public engagement. A lot of times they only hear about it when it's in the final stages of public input, and a lot of times they feel like they're late to the table. So we just need to look for opportunities to better engage the public.
Thank you. Mr. Milliard.
Oh, I love this question. I'm in a lawsuit now with the city over selective enforcement. Hardly a day goes by that some public employee is either incompetent or corrupt. It all starts in City Hall. Anybody that works there can do anything they want to you at any time. And when you get over to the courts, the jokes of justice, the jokers of justice, they'll make sure the city wins. Now, I beat the city in court, but it starts right there in City Hall, and it trickles down to every person there. Typical Fayette County employee doesn't work 40 hours a week. They're not in the office on Friday afternoon. They're typically incompetent, and they're typically corrupt or have some level of corruption. And if you don't believe me, check my record at the courthouse. I beat them in court, and I'm exposing selective enforcement now.
Thank you so much. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
I have seen over the years that we want public comments and public interest in our government and what's going on, and to engage them, we have to put it out there. A lot of stuff, just like with things I'm involved in, I don't hear about it until the day of. And how can you make the community involved if the only people hearing about it are the select people that your councilman and your mayor want to come? Sometimes it's just about not getting people the information soon enough. And the other thing, which I suggested the last time in 2018, was open door. Come in. I'll have my door open so you, as a council person, so that I can address any issue, and that leaves it open so that anybody can make a informed decision of what's going on and know what's going on. And I was talking about having meetings like the mayor did at the first, when she first got in, where the public is open, and then not the same people always coming in, and they'll know that we're really interested in each and individual's.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that for this question. This will be our last question before closing remarks. Mr. Brown, you will take it first. Do you have any suggestions to improve LexTrans specifically and multimodal transportation in general?
Yeah, so I think some of the ways that we can think about improving LexTran and other public transportation is how we do some of our infill projects. I think transportation has to be something that's talked about on the front end of these development projects and not on the back end, and make them more accessible to folks to use public transportation as a way to get around. I know we're currently doing corridor studies on Nicholasville Road. I think Winchester Road is next, but these are some of our corridors where we can develop and create developments that make it more convenient to use LexTran as public transportation around our community. And then I think LexTran is also going through a process now, changing their routes, trying to make them more accessible, more efficient, and also getting public input about ways to do that. There are a lot of things that we can think about as folks, because I don't use LexTran on a regular basis, but I think there are folks that do, that can give valuable input on ways to improve that system. So,
Thank you. Mr. Milliard.
Well, LexTran, folks, is so many people depend on it. Biggest complaint I get is it takes so long to get from A to B. And it's a lot of it is just the logistics of traffic and such. You know, I would be for expanding LexTran to make sure that there's quicker service. I would also be an advocate for grants, so some of people can have a month-long ticket for LexTran. You know, it would be a grant. It would be a gift. And if we give it away, more people can use it. If more people can use it, you'd have more participants. So I'm all for LexTran. Every new development that comes in as a large scale or, or small scale, just the ability to have that bus stop in front of your project. The development I've got on Old Parish right now, we have a bus stop right in front of my property. And that's one of the reasons I bought that property. And one of the things I'm going to try to do is expand a lane where this huge bus can pull off and stop right in front of my property. And that's going to make my property.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
Yes. As a person that has used LexTran, I have seen it go, and that's off and on because for different reasons. But I have seen it go from a 15-minute or 20-minute ride schedule to now it's an hour and a half or an hour. And so I would be for looking into other ways of expanding LexTran. And of course, there are grants and government grants and shareable grants and different situations. And they're always coming up with ways for transportation that is more mean. And it's a good way to deal with our environment too. If you have more people riding the bus, like drop and stop, you park here and you ride here. These are real ways of dealing with our environment also. So
Thank you.
Of course, I'm looking at it.
Appreciate it very, very much. Mr. Wu?
Thank you. My mom is a very regular LexTran bus rider, so this is something that I do hear about. And I attended a LexTran feedback meeting recently too about their strategic planning, and it was very interesting to see how very much tied they are into everything that goes on in the city. I think we need to make sure whenever we talk about development and redevelopment that LexTran has to absolutely be at the table, because especially as we're doing development inside the city, it very much affects the people who are LexTran's ridership. Those are the folks who aren't car owners necessarily, and it affects poorer communities a lot more. Beyond LexTran and beyond buses, we need to talk about expanding bike lanes and a heavier emphasis on bike and other modes of transportation. And I would love to see us turn Lexington into a car optional city.
Thank you so much. And now we turn to closing remarks. We have randomized once again for order of go, and Mr. Milliard, you're up first.
Well, it's all about affordability, folks. It's all about dropping these tax rates. It's all about dropping these payroll taxes to make this city more affordable and to hold its uniqueness. So I'll be the advocate ringing that bell, crying in the wilderness. Let's drop property taxes. Let's drop government waste. Let's find a way to imply special rights to the people who are becoming economically displaced in this city. and hold ourselves to a quality of life higher than any other urban area. We have the resources to do it. We have the people, we have the hard social resources, we have the infrastructure sources to do this. There's no reason that the ranking city Lexington has as it compares to other cities in the nation is as low as it is. It could be better. And one of the things I'll do as soon as I enter that office is start pushing for a higher ranking for the city of Lexington. God bless you and thank you.
so much. Ms. Miller-Johnson.
Again, as a city that is ranking, we have to look at the agriculture, which I as a supervisor, ex-supervisor, we had grants to help landowners and farmers. And then we have to address the infrastructure. And I feel that with all the programs we have, we are looking at what we can and cannot do. With transportation and the environment, I agree that there are other issues. And in Japan and China, they use little mopeds and stuff like that. We have to look at where we are and where we're going. What do we want? The environment first, our community, our safety. Those are all the overall look of the community. And that's what I have been perspiring to do, is to look at the overall issues. And yes, we can
so much.
be
I really
polished.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,
and I hope you vote for me.
It's my pleasure. Mr. Wu.
Thank you again, Liza and Carol and the League of Women Voters for having me. This has been a really great conversation. We've talked a lot today about housing development, public safety, the environment, government transparency, agricultural development, public transportation, displacement of communities, so many different challenges we face here in Lexington. And what it's highlighted for me is the need for creative and bold solutions that are out of the box, because sometimes these old ideas and old ways haven't always worked, especially for a city like ours that's changing and growing so fast. I believe I have the creativity, authenticity, and commitment to transparency to move Lexington forward. Please check out my website at danwooforlex.com and also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at danwooforlex. Don't forget to vote for me on May 17th. I am the last name on the council at large ballot, which is okay because with a name like Dan Wu, I'm kind of used to it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And Mr. Brown, you get the final say today.
Thank you, Liza, and thank you, Carol and the League of Women Voters for having us today and giving us this opportunity. A lot of the questions that were asked today are pretty complicated questions that take more time and more conversation and more nuanced answers than we can give in 60 seconds. But I think what's important is Lexington is at a pivotal point now going forward. Coming out of the pandemic with all the challenges that we face in regards to growth and other issues, I think we have to have folks in elected office that are willing to listen, to be informed, to learn from the folks that have elected them to serve, and to be able to make some tough decisions. You know, I think a lot of the stuff boils down to what my campaign is focused on, and that's community safety, challenges to growth, and maximizing our connections throughout the community. And I feel like that I've been on council for a while and have shown that I'm a proven, experienced leader that is willing to make some of these tough decisions, and ask for your support on May 17th. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. And we'd like to thank all the candidates for participating today. It's been a marvelous conversation. If you are interested in seeing this and other forums, please check out the website at lwvlexington.com. And while you're there, please check out membership. We would love to have you, male and female alike. Be sure to vote on May 17th. And if you're looking for some additional information on candidates, please check out vote411.org. And thank you so much for joining us today.